Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a topic that practically guarantees a little bit of anxiety in households everywhere: how to proactively recognize and address your child's academic struggles. Look, if you're a parent or really anyone invested in a student's success, you already know that navigating the whole education journey isn't exactly smooth sailing all the time. So we're going to dive into the data and insights from our source material to give you a clear, structured framework. We are going to decode the hidden signals your child might be sending and walk away with a concrete action plan to get them right back on track.
All right, let's jump right in with a pretty tough question that we all need to ask ourselves. Do you really know when your child is struggling academically? It's heavy, right? The truth is, a lot of parents only realize something is fundamentally wrong when that report card finally makes its way home. But here's the catch. Waiting for a bad report card means the grades have already dropped. The damage for that term is already done. And let's be real, children rarely just walk up and say, "Hey, I'm struggling," or "I just don't understand my teacher." Instead, they communicate all of this through their actions.
You see, grades are what we call a lagging indicator. By the time you actually see that D or F, the struggle has been happening for weeks, maybe even months. Relying on grades puts you in a purely reactive position. But behavior and habits? Now those are the leading indicators we need to be watching. They are the early warning signs that pop up long before any exam results get posted. If we can just shift our focus from waiting for that final score to observing their daily process, we can actually become proactive advocates for our kids' education. Okay, let's get into the first major section, decoding the behavior, focusing on 7 early warning signs.
So, sign number 1 is a drop in grades. Now, I know we just literally said grades are a lagging indicator, but they are absolutely a crucial sign when they first start to slip. If your child normally does reasonably well and suddenly their marks take a nosedive, you can't just ignore it. But remember, a falling grade isn't necessarily the problem itself. It's a signal that there is a problem somewhere else. It could be a new teaching style, poor study habits, or just major distractions. The big takeaway here is to treat the grade as a signal to investigate, not an excuse to interrogate. Try asking, "What happened?" instead of, "Why are you failing?"
Moving on to sign number 2, avoiding conversations about school. You ask, "How was school?" and you get, "Fine." What did you learn? Nothing. We have all been there, right? It's basically the universal language of the teenager. Now, this doesn't automatically mean the sky is falling, but if it becomes a persistent pattern alongside other changes, you really need to pay attention. If they constantly change the subject when a test comes up, they might be hiding some serious anxiety. So instead of grilling them, create a safe space. Just say something like, "Hey, you can tell me if you're finding something difficult. I'm here to help." They don't need a lecture, they just need to know it's safe to open up.
Sign number 3 is suddenly avoiding homework. A kid who normally gets their assignments done might start saying, "I don't have homework today," or "The teacher didn't give us anything," or my personal favorite, "I'll do it later." And of course, later never actually comes. You might even find crumpled assignments shoved at the very bottom of their backpack. Don't just immediately assume your kid is being lazy. More often than not, a child avoids homework because they simply have no idea what they're supposed to do. Avoiding the task altogether becomes a psychological coping mechanism. So before handing out punishments, sit down and find out exactly which part of the homework has them stumped.
Sign 4 is intense frustration and anxiety about schoolwork. Hearing things like, "I can't do this," or "I'm just not a math person," is a massive red flag. These statements are incredibly dangerous because your child is actively building a negative belief about their own abilities. If they believe they just aren't smart enough, they're going to stop trying entirely. We have to be so careful with labels here. Please don't agree that they aren't a math person. Instead, introduce the absolute magic of the word "yet." Tell them, "You might not understand it yet, but we'll figure it out together." It points to future potential and completely flips how a kid views learning. Okay, sign 5 highlights a really common trap. It's when a child spends hours studying, but you don't see any improvement. It is so easy to see your kids sitting with their books for 3 hours and think, well, at least they're putting in the work. But time spent studying absolutely does not equal effective learning. They could just be passively rereading without actually understanding a thing. Or maybe they're studying with 5 browser tabs open and checking their phone every couple of minutes. Instead of tracking the hours, ask them, "So, what did you learn today? Can you teach it to me?" That's how you figure out if that study time is actually working.
Sign 6 is a noticeable loss of confidence, and this is a critical one. If your child used to always raise their hand and now they look terrified to answer a question, or if they're constantly comparing themselves to the smart kids in the room, academic performance is going to plummet right along with that confidence. To fight this, you absolutely must praise their effort and their progress, not just perfect scores. Instead of pointing out they only got a 60%, celebrate the fact that they jumped up from a 50 to a 60, and then brainstorm how to hit 70.
Forward progress is what truly matters here. And finally, sign 7 wraps up those general behavioral changes. You know, academic stress doesn't always stay confined to homework time. It often bleeds right into everyday life. Maybe they're unusually withdrawn, snappy, constantly distracted, or just completely exhausted all the time. They might even drop a hobby they used to be obsessed with. Now, sure, these changes could be from a bunch of different things, but if they're happening while grades are slipping, do not ignore them. You know your child's normal baseline better than anyone. When you see major shifts away from that baseline, it's time to talk.
All right, let's transition to our second section, the Parent's Action Plan, where we'll cover 5 steps to support your child.
The really crucial point here is that you need to follow these 5 steps sequentially. Take a look at the flow. You start by checking your own emotions. Then you move to gathering facts. And finally, you build a concrete support network. Let's break these down so you can see exactly how this works in practice.
For steps 1 and 2, it's all about keeping your cool. Step 1, don't panic. Look, a bad grade does not mean your kid is a failure. It's just data. Ask yourself, what is this result trying to tell us? Step 2 is talking to your child. And remember, this is a conversation, not a police interrogation. Try asking, which subject is giving you a hard time? How can I help? And the absolute golden rule of step 2, truly, genuinely listen to what they're struggling with without jumping in to judge.
Then we hit step 3, which is talking to the teacher. If this struggle is persistent, you've got to open up a line of communication with the school. Ask the teacher if your child is participating in class, or if there's a specific topic tripping them up. Combining what you see at the dining room table with what the teacher sees in the classroom gives you the full 360-degree picture. You are basically looking at 2 different sides of the exact same student, and working together is the only way to figure out the whole story.
Moving right along to step 4, identify the real problem. Honestly, just labeling a kid as not serious is a dead end. You need to pinpoint the exact hurdle in front of them. Are we dealing with terrible study habits, a fundamental gap in understanding? Maybe it's horrible time management or a fear of failure? Once you get past the symptoms and identify the specific, real problem, you can actually start building a targeted solution.
Step 5 is where you build that support system. Your child should never feel like they are fighting this academic battle all by themselves. You need to set up some essential pillars at home. Create a realistic routine. Carve out a quiet workspace away from the household chaos. Make sure they have the right supplies, and please, schedule time for them to just rest and be a kid. Above all, make sure they know they have someone they can vent to when the pressure gets to be too much.
Okay, let's head into our third and final section, the paradigm shift. We need to talk about changing your perspective.
This next realization, it hits right at the core of our own biases. A struggling student is not necessarily a lazy student. It is so unbelievably easy to just cry lazy when we see a missing assignment or a lot of eye rolling. We've all done it. But remember, that bad behavior is often just the visible, messy surface of an undiscovered problem. The laziness is usually a symptom, a defense mechanism, and not the actual disease itself.
The real secret here is shifting your perspective from blame to empathy. Instead of staring at a bad report card and asking, what is wrong with my child, we need to completely rewire our brains to ask, what is my child struggling with and how can I help? That one shift changes the entire vibe from punishment to partnership. It is a total game changer for your child's academic journey and honestly, for their self-worth too.
I'm going to leave you with this final question to chew on. Think about your own household. What is the very first behavioral sign you notice when your child hits an academic wall? I really encourage you to share your experiences with us and apply these steps at home. Don't wait for a piece of paper to tell you what you can observe today. Keep learning, keep paying attention, and keep moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.